Hi everyone. I'm not exactly sure where on YouTube I found this question, but I do know that there was a certain context to it, and I'll explain that after I read the question. So Sangar Arpad writes, "Who are you to question God? Seriously, does atheist arguments really end up simply being, I don't like God, therefore he cannot exist? That's intellectually dishonest and, frankly put, pathetic." So of course, that's not the argument anyone's making, especially on its face without the context. After all, I don't like watermelon, but it still exists. So what was going on in the rest of the comment section was discussing the different parts of the religious text. I don't remember if it was the Bible or the Quran. And some atheists were saying things like, oh, you claim that it's a moral book, and yet here's something that's abhorrent that's in the Bible or the Quran. Here's something that's not moral that's found there. And so that's where Sangar had said, well, who are you to question God? What, you don't like it, therefore you're not going to believe in God? That doesn't make any sense. And I agree. Just to say I don't like it, therefore God doesn't exist, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the thing is, we have to remember is, if I ask this question, I'm not questioning God, I'm questioning you. I'm asking you if you're going to say that your religious book has X attribute. It is moral, it is true, it is historically accurate, and so on. If I can point something out that goes against that, something that is immoral, something that is not historically true, and so on, if I'm able to point that out, I'm not questioning God. We haven't even gotten that far. And that's what I think is really important to remember. If we're talking about a religious document, we have not established yet that a deity exists. If we're talking about the religious document, we're just talking about what's written in the document, the claims that are made in the document. We are not making another assumption on top of that, that the author of the document was God, or the author of the document was inspired by God. So therefore, when I'm talking about the document itself, I'm also questioning God. We haven't gotten that far. We're just saying, hey, religious person, you made this claim about your book. Here's something contrary to that claim. What do you think of it? So this idea that we're questioning God, we haven't even established that. And that's the part where I think it can be helpful to remember sort of a step-by-step process of, what an average atheist is really looking for. Of course, I can't speak for every atheist, but for atheists that are like me, we want to do step 1, demonstrate your God exists. Step 2, demonstrate that your God believes or feels or says or does certain things. And then step 3, provide evidence that those things are a direct reflection of what is in your religious text. So when we're talking about just the religious text, we haven't gone through steps 1 and 2 yet. I haven't granted, yeah, there's a God, he wrote it, let's talk about what he wrote. We're not there. What we're talking about is just, you made a claim about the book. I also read the book, and I disagree with that claim that you've made. I'm questioning you. I'm not questioning God. After all, if I did want to question God, if I believe in God, and I want to question God, why would I do it talking to you? Why would I do it through you? I would just talk to God. I also don't like that question anyway, who are you to question God? Because if you believe in God, and you believe he created me as a curious person, who am I to question God? Well, the answer is the person that God made me. You can ask questions to somebody. Absolutely. And so this idea that your God created me in the way that they created me, and so that includes being somebody who asks questions, then of course I'm going to question God. If I were to question God, if I were to meet God and say, hey, how come this one time you said, or how come the people claim that you said, I could definitely question God. So I don't see, if a person's having trouble, let's assume God is real, and a person is having trouble understanding God's thought process, why can't they ask about it? Why is that off limits to say, hey, God, why did you make animals that lived in the ocean really, really deep that can survive near hydrothermic vents? why not be able to question? I don't understand why that would be off limits. Or God, how come if you don't want people to go to hell, then, and you know if everybody who goes to hell and who doesn't go to hell, you know that before they're born, why do you make people born that go to hell? Why would that be off limits to question anyway? That's another thing I don't understand about this kind of response. Who are you to question God? Well, who is God that he can't receive a question? I'm not punching God in the face. I'm not saying that, hey, this thing is stupid and you're stupid. I'm just saying, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? And if God's going to say no, like he did with Job, who am I, or who are you that I have to explain myself to you? That kind of really arrogant and cruel response, quite frankly. Okay, so be it. Then God just doesn't want to explain his reasoning. That's up to him, but who am I to question God? I'm a person with a question that God could answer. I don't see why that would inherently be off limits. So if anybody can answer that, why it would be just bad to question God. Even as a Christian, I never understood that concept. This idea that God is there to answer our questions. And he can answer them with a no. He can answer them with, I don't have to tell you. But why can't we ask a question? I never got that. This whole idea that God is like our father, our guide, somebody that wants the best for us, and all of these great things. Wouldn't they want us to have an understanding of why they do what they do? Wouldn't they want us to have an understanding of the world around us and other people and why things work, how they work? Isn't that part of being like a loving and like a loving creator who wants to nurture your well-being? That to me would make sense, right? It would follow that God would want you to question if you were confused and to answer your questions to clarify those things. So I never really understood that concept. But again, I'm not questioning God. I'm just questioning you and your reasoning. I'm asking you why you think this book was written by God. We haven't even established that it was. Why do you think it was? Why do you think this is where all of our morals should come from? Even if some of the morals are bad, why do you think this is where the morals should come from? Now for you, you're going to say, well, because God wrote the book. Cool. Now we can take a step away from the book and say, all right, now can we demonstrate that God exists? Step 1. Step 2, that God feels this way. And step 3, that God put those feelings in the book. That's a separate discussion to have. So hopefully this kind of clears it up. If there's still any question about it from religious people, please feel free to ask that below. And for anybody that was religious or never was religious, but they understand a different angle to this and they want to share that idea, feel free. Any other comments, of course, please post that in the comment section below. Make sure to make everything minor friendly. And also, if we're going to have a discussion, to talk to each other, talk with each other, not at each other. I've noticed in a lot of the videos, there's people that will post things at atheists, or they post it at me, making accusations basically to some other atheist about something that atheist said, and then asking me to justify it or explain it as if it was something that I had said. And it happens the other way as well, where there's some atheists that will post to religious people and say, well, because you're this religion, you must have this kind of belief. And so let's try to avoid that, so that way we can have just a really, more straightforward discussion. There's also links to Patreon, Discord, and other social media in the pinned comment below, so you guys can check out those places as well. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for listening.